Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Static Feedback, the webinar from CloudCannon. We are a visual CMS, and every couple of weeks I like to chat with someone in the static or in the broad web development community. This week I'm joined by Haimantika Mitra from Appwrite. She's a developer advocate for Appwrite. So welcome, Haimantika. It's lovely to have you with us, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, David. Good morning from India, and I guess it's good evening from your time zone. So, yes, I think it's a pleasure being here, and I'm very excited to build something with Appwrite and show how you can fetch or work with a static website and with Appwrite as well. So it's a
Fantastic.
pleasure being here.
That's great. I'm really looking forward to this. I think I mentioned on Twitter, this is one of my favorite parts is when I get to just watch over someone's shoulder as they're building something and see how they work. And you pick up different workflows when that happens. But also, I can ask what I think are pretty dumb questions and learn something along the way. That's great. So before we get into the workshop section, maybe we could go through a bit of background about you. So how did you get your start in technology? And how did you come to work for Appwrite?
Sure. So I think the story is a long one, but I'll try to keep it short. So I come from India, and the place where I come from is towards the northeastern part of India, and we specialize in 5 Ts, that is tea, take, timber, and then there is table tennis as well, like the sport table tennis.
Yes.
But sadly, there is no T that stands for technology, which means that it's a proper business city, and people don't work with technology a lot. And there was only one institution where technology or engineering was taught, and that is where I did my graduation from.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can understand that we still don't have a lot of exposure of technology. And my first 2 to 3 years of engineering graduation, it passed by just going through the books and the theories of engineering. And I did electronics. So I studied things like satellite, breadboard, and all of those,
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with software or a little bit to do with software things. And then the world was taken aback by COVID. While it was a very bad time for everybody, but it turned out to be good for me because I got time to myself, and I could, learn things on my own, spend time on my skills. And I would just be on my computer, Google random things. And that is where I came across different communities that we have, technical communities. And I saw that there was a student community by Microsoft, that is Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador.
Mm.
Now it is called like that. And before it was Microsoft Student Partners. So I just applied, and luckily I got selected. And that is how, my tech journey basically started. We all love Microsoft technologies because that is how we start with the computers. Okay, there's
That's
this
right.
Windows operating system, and then Paint and all of those things, right? So yeah, I started with Microsoft technologies, and then there was this low-code tool called Power Platform, which is generally used by enterprises, and I developed a lot in it. I used to just randomly share on Twitter and do public learning. And basically, that garnered the interest of other people from Microsoft, and I started speaking.
Mm.
I loved talking and speaking, but it was all limited to me either speaking to myself or speaking in front of my mirror. But Microsoft gave me that opportunity to speak in different conferences and in different meetups. So slowly, that passion, it transferred from just one technology to technology in general. And I started teaching myself different languages, and even Go is one of them. So
Mm.
that is how, I explored opportunities in open source and mostly in CNCF projects where Go is being widely used. So I taught myself Go. I contributed to a project called BuildPack. And, from there, the journey, I just randomly wake up one day and decide, okay, this is the new tech that is, getting popular, and I should learn it. So I do that a lot. And but I would say that with having a full-time job, it becomes a bit difficult to stay updated with what's going on. But yeah, this is something that I generally like doing. And fast forward that to 2021, I joined Microsoft, but that time I was in the support team. Even though I liked the company and the technologies, but I wasn't enjoying my job
Mm.
because I wanted to do more than that. I wanted to help people, I wanted to talk, I wanted to build, break, and do all of it. So that is why I chose the job that I am in right now, which is of a developer advocate. And I'm basically doing everything that I really loved and saw, and learned my technology or, people skills from. So, yeah. That's
Yeah.
all. That's my entire story.
I love that it started with wanting to learn in public, and that seems to come up a
Yeah,
lot in developer advocates. They're big boosters of learning and teaching in
exactly.
public, and having a free and open forum for questions. And I think we see that in the Jamstack and the static world a lot, that
Yeah,
the community is the most important thing, and that there will always be someone who can answer your question without having to resort to a forum, Stack Overflow or something. Someone directly will want to help. So that's fantastic.
exactly.
I'm interested. Do you see a similarity between hardware engineering, or the electrical engineering you started off studying, and software engineering?
Yeah.
Are there parallels there?
Not really, but if we go into the deeper side, so like our computers are made of solid state devices, which has a close connection with electronics. So that is the only bridge that I find. But other than that, the microcontrollers, microprocessors, which are basically the building blocks of the computer. So we have all of these. So I would say that before writing the software, I knew what's inside the computer. So if I think deeply, I think it's fun to know that what's inside my computer and how things work. That's the only that's the only thing.
It dovetails quite neatly with the previous interview I did about artisanal web development, where the point was that you know every single line of code and you know what everything does. And if you bring that right back to the microprocessor, you know what physically is happening, and perhaps there's some alignment there. That's great. So now you're a developer advocate at Appwrite. Can you tell us a bit about Appwrite and what the company is about, what it offers, and how we can use it?
Sure. So Appwrite is it's an open source project and a company, by the way. So you can see everything that is happening in Appwrite, all the features that we are integrating or adding. So all of this is there on public. So basically, we're an open source backend as a server, which means that you build the front end and the backend is built by Appwrite. So to build the backend, let's say you need authentication, database, storage, then there are functions, and there are a lot of things that, I feel that front end is the nice looking part and back end is the ugly part when it comes to development, because that is where, a lot of logic and complexities come in. And what Appwrite does is it makes it simple for you. So we have APIs and we have both client and server side SDKs. So, for backend developments, for web and mobile app development, you can use Appwrite. And it will, we have everything ready for you. You just need to spin things together and, things will be up and running for you.
Great. And recently you had your 1.0 launch and came, I think, number 1 on Product Hunt on the day, number 2 in the week. A really huge launch and very successful. But the numbers prior to that, you had 24,000 GitHub stars, 600 contributors.
Exactly.
It's a massive community undertaking.
Yeah. I think it's all because of it's a blessing of being an open source project. So, we have a lot of contributors and community support that is all organic, and we are not telling people that, hey, you need to come and join us. And also, I would say, the core and everything that we do at Appwrite is because of the community. And there has been instances where we have had releases and a lot of features are contributed by contributors and not by the engineers at Appwrite. So the community is pretty strong, and we are trying very hard to make sure that we can support the community and, keep everybody in a place where they feel that they're welcomed, and all the while also having some fun while doing the tech stuff. So I think that it's a big blessing for us.
And there's a lot of trust in that model too, isn't there? That people in the community know what is on the roadmap, because there are issues, there are things that have been opened, and it's all very public. So it's not like anyone's hiding features, and no one's going to spring a breaking change. You know when a breaking change is coming.
Exactly. And also, I would say that since it's open source and we go by the model of developer first. So a lot of features, it has happened, and even very recently, that we take feedbacks very seriously. So let's say that a few developers come up to us and say that, okay, we don't like the UI, or we feel that it has some accessibility issues, and which is fine, I guess. So yeah, we take those seriously, and it has happened in the near future, in the near past, that we worked on it instantaneously and reverted some changes and added those features. So yeah, in that, what I mean to say is that we take feedbacks and of developers very seriously. So Appwrite has the developer first approach, and that maybe that is why the community is very invested in us as well.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's a laudable approach, I think. And can you tell us a bit more about your focus on open source software? So you I understand you led or created and led or just led the Appwrite OSS fund?
Yeah, so I lead it, but it was the
Yes.
brainchild of our CEO himself. So if you know about the story of Appwrite, it started in 2019. It was a side project of our CEO and co-founder, Eldad. So he just, he wanted to solve his own problem, and that is how Appwrite was created. And now it's 2022, almost ending, and we are a team of 30 plus people. So it scaled from being a side project to a company, and it was all in open source. So Eldad and all of us, we have a very soft corner for open source projects, maintainers, and the community in general. And we understand that, how much a little support can do to you when you need it the most. And we understand that maintainers, especially project maintainers, they spend a lot of time for these projects, which are helping millions of developers, and in return, they get paid nothing. And there are this running costs that each project needs. So that is something that we have tried to solve to some extent at Appwrite. We are a small company, and we can only give as much as we have. So, and we just came up with this initiative, also thinking that if this is start, maybe some other companies will follow, which can give more, and this can be a chain of giving back to the community. So what we do is we have an amount of $50,000 that we intend to give it to 20 projects, so $2,500 to each project. And so far we have announced 8 projects. The one will be announced very soon. And yeah, what we are doing is we are giving or supporting projects and open source maintainers with fund who, the projects, maybe we don't see the number of stars or anything. We see how much activity it has, what impact it has, how many developers are using it, and all of those. So there are a lot of criteria that we consider before selecting one project. And yes, so we have also sponsored maintainers. So there are maintainers who are maintaining 2 or 3 open source projects, and they do not have enough funds to support themselves and the project. So these are the kind of people we really look forward to support, and hope that the work that they are doing will pay back in some form in the near future.
That's right, and it's a beautiful story to hear, and I wish more companies did this. I think it's lovely to hear that there's a recognition of unpaid labor, and recognition of maybe the moral cost of open source software. If a developer is putting a lot of time into it, and then a lot of companies are possibly making money off this, you kind of go back to the root of who was making the tool at the bottom that everyone else is building on. That's fantastic. I'll look forward to looking through the list of projects that you funded, and the next one, the announcement coming soon. Fantastic.
Sure.
Well, let's move on to our workshop. So our title of our talk today is Building a Static Site with Appwrite. So could you talk me through the process, and then I guess let's get into it.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. So I think I'll just share my screen now, and we can go from here. Great. So like the talk topic goes, so we'll be building a static site with Appwrite. And hi, it's me. We have talked about myself, so I'll skip this part. And yeah, before we do that, so below is my Twitter handle, and that is where I stay most active, but I go by the name Haimantika Mitra on LinkedIn as well. So at any times, if anybody wants to talk about Appwrite, open source, tech, communities, anything in general, I'm always there. I will always lend an ear to you. So yeah, that's about me. And so this is what we will be talking about today. First, we will be going about what are we building, And then a little introduction to Appwrite. I gave a brief one, but I think we'll talk about it a little more in details. Then some of the prerequisites that we need or you need to make sure that you can do this demo. And then we'll go back to the demo and some resources that will help you upskill. So the first question, that what are we building? So we are building a static blogging platform using Appwrite and Hugo. But the first time I discovered Hugo, I thought that it's amazing and it can help me. I have so many ideas to build, and the time required to build a site and having that idea into production is what takes a lot of time, and it's often a nightmare to developers. But when I saw Hugo, I saw that okay, it's pretty easy to have a site and you can practically see things and do things that you imagine. So yeah, that's why Hugo is my preference for this one, and plus I think it's pretty easy for beginners and everybody to use. And before I say that what we're going to build in details, I would also say that this is a very beginner-friendly tutorial. So if you're somebody, maybe a student or somebody who is just starting out learning how to develop, this is going to be pretty easy for you.
Fantastic.
And yep. And the goals that we have for today is first to choose a template from Hugo. Hugo has a bunch of amazing templates. So depending upon whichever you like or suits your taste, you go ahead and choose one. And then we have installing Hugo. I'll be showing that because that is the easier part. Setting up Appwrite is a bit difficult in the sense that it has a Docker command and you need to have Docker set up on your desktop, or you can also use Git for DigitalOcean. Since I already have that part done on my desktop, I won't be showing that. And then we will be using the Appwrite SDKs I talked about. Basically, what the SDKs will do is we have a site in Hugo and it is the MD file that writes the content in Hugo. But what we will be building now is the content will be there in Appwrite. So the database feature of Appwrite is what we will be using. And Hugo will build from the content that is present in Appwrite, and you can see that live on your site. A very simple demo. So to do all of that, we need to bring all of it together. The Appwrite SDKs, binding Hugo. So when you do all of it together, it's just a very simple, program that you need to write, and a lot of it will already be present in Appwrite docs. As we do it, you'll see how easy it is. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And when you run it, you'll have your own static blogging platform. So yes, that is what we're building today.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. I think your response of when you first encountered Hugo, that seems to be incredibly common. I've been following people discovering Hugo for the last few months on Twitter, and it's always amazement and excitement about the speed mostly.
Exactly.
And the fact that it doesn't rely on Go as much as people think it does, that you don't have to know Go to use Hugo.
Yeah. Exactly. So you just need to know how to write an MD file. If you know that, you're good. And
That's
some
right.
JavaScript. That's it.
Yep.
So the prerequisites, like I mentioned, is to have Hugo installed. But so Hugo can be installed using just one command. So even if you don't have it, if you're following my workshop, you can do that as well. And Appwrite server, I'll be showing you the commands that you need to have and all the installation process. We have a documentation that can lead you step by step on how to do it, but it's basically just one command that you need to run. And yes, third, we have ID of your choice where you can go ahead and code. And like I mentioned that I'm a Microsoft fan, so my favorite ID is VS Code, but you are free to use any ID of your choice. Great. So yeah, that's all about the prerequisites. And I guess it's time that we get to know a bit about Appwrite. And I guess in the previous streams on CloudCannon, we also got to know a bit about Hugo, or if you have watched the Hugo conference. If not, you can go ahead and see the videos. So you'll get to know a bit more about Hugo as well. So that is the part that I'm not covering right now, but I'm covering a bit about Appwrite because we are yet to have a conference of our own. So like I mentioned that we are an open source backend server, and what you see on the right, the picture is of our console. So it shows all the requests that you have made, the number of documents that you have, storage, and all the features that you're using in Appwrite. It shows up on your console. And I will be showing you the demo. I'll be showing you how the console looks. And yes, before we begin, so like I mentioned, what Appwrite is, I forgot to mention about the self-hosting part. So with Appwrite, I think this is why a lot of developers love using Appwrite, that it is self-hosted, which means that you are responsible for the hosting and you don't, have to be dependent on us um, or on any other services to host it for you. You can choose any cloud provider that you like and host it for yourself. And this also makes gives you the um, I would say it gives you the power to have things with yourself rather than sharing the data and all of it. And like I mentioned, that it also provides all the core APIs that is required to build any application. So if you're building backend for the first time, you don't really need to worry about the learning curve and the tech stack that is required to build a backend, because we have it covered for you. Moving forward, so these are some of the tools that most backend required, and all of these are already present in Appwrite. And the first one being authentication and users management. Then we have database. So database is my favorite service of Appwrite, but the best ones are Cloud Functions, because we already have around 11 Cloud Functions currently, and it's there in Java, Kotlin, and many different languages. So, and a few more are still being added. And I think we have a runtime on Perl, and it was recently added by an Hacktoberfest contributor. So, it's an open source project. If you feel that there is a lack of any particular thing, you can go ahead and create an issue and contribute to us. Then we have storage, and we talked about cloud functions right now. Then there are webhooks. Then there is high security, like the built-in security is there, and a part of it is because it's self-hosted. Then you also have geolocation and localization, image manipulation, and real time. So all of our services are real time. And I'll give you a nice example of it. So recently we just built game with Flutter, very similar to the Google game that we have, the Flappy Bird game, but it's with Dash, because we're building it with Flutter. And we needed to have a leaderboard where the score is, as if I am player, if I'm the first player, as soon as I end the game, my score should be on the dashboard. If David, you are the second player, as soon as you end the game, your score should be on the dashboard. So this was real time, and it was built totally by Appwrite. And for the front end, like for the game, we used Flutter. So yeah, so this is just one example of how you can use Appwrite. Anything that you can think of, you can practically do with Appwrite. And we also recently started some community spotlight series where we talk about different apps that are built with Appwrite and are in production already. So if you want more ideas of what Appwrite can do, that is the perfect place to go ahead and see.
And where can we find that? Is that through, so appwrite.io is your website, but how can we find out more about the different apps built on Appwrite?
So it's there in dev.2.
Oh,
I'm writing it, so that is why you see my profile here. And yes, so this is the first community spotlight that I wrote about, and it's actually people who watch anime will know it. It's a Mangus app.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch anime. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it very wrong. So there, a user, like, he's a contributor to Appwrite, and he built it with Appwrite. So this is how it looks. And at present, I think it has over 1 million requests, and it is being used in France and also in Spain very heavily.
Wow.
So yeah, that is just one example.
Fantastic. I'll add a link to that in the video description after we finish.
Sure. I'll just share you the link after we finish. So I think that next we have the resources that I would like to share, but now it's time that I show you what we are building. So before building it from scratch, what I'll do is I'll open up the code that I already have, and I'll zoom it a bit. Yep, I think it looks good now.
Thank you.
So my code is here. So basically, if you see, all of these files are not written by me. It's the Hugo Quick Start tutorial that taught me how to set up a Hugo site, and I'll also show you how you can do that. And the only file that I wrote is this. Oh, I think this is a different file. Sorry, I'll have to open a new file. It's good that I got to know it before. Yep,
Yep.
before showing the demo. Yeah, right. So as you can see that this is the quick start folder that you have, and all of these were written by Hugo and not by me. So the quick start tutorial is a very nice first step if you're starting with Hugo. And the only file that I wrote is this fetchart.js, and also a lot of these lines are already Appwrite SDKs, which are there ready for you, and you can build it. So the first thing that I will do is I will go back to my browser here and to the Appwrite console. So if you have Appwrite installed in your machine and you sign in, I'll be showing you the steps and create a new project. This is how it will look. So this is currently the project that I have for the Hugo site. I have connected it, and you can see that I already made 4 requests and there are 2 documents. And since I mentioned that we're using the database service of Appwrite, so the storage users and all of those parts are 0. So I go back to my database here and I click on test. Under collections, I have articles, and it's time that I add something. So what I'll do is I'll add a title and body, and this title and body will show up in my blogging platform. So let's write that hi from CloudCannon. I hope I'm writing
That's great.
the spelling right.
Yes, thank you.
And all right, hello, good morning. And I'll just create it. I'll go back to my code and I'll just run this file, chart.js. And you see that it fetches all the documents that we have. So I have 3 documents currently. And the next thing that I need to do is I need to go inside my quick start folder, because that is where my Hugo site lies. And what I'll do is I'll just make the Hugo server up, and I just run the simple command Hugo server -d, and you'll see that my site is up in localhost. Oops. I'm just waiting. Yep. So you see that my site is ready, and it fetches all the documents or all the text that I have in my Appwrite console. And this is a recent one that I wrote, that is hi from CloudCannon, and it shows that hello, good morning. So like I mentioned, that if you were to do it in the conventional way, you'll have to create an MD file within your quick start folder, and from there it will build the site for you. But now what we are doing is we are having the database in Appwrite, and you just create it in Appwrite, and from there it is building the site for you. It's pretty interesting for me because I feel that it's automated and you can do more with it. But this is just an example. Like, you can host it on GitHub, and with every commit that you make, the site will pop up with the content that you're adding. So there's a lot more that you can do with it. But since it's a simple demo, I'll just show you how to build what I'm showing right now.
That's really cool. So
what will
essentially, do we have here a database that's functioning as a CMS or a simple CMS?
Exactly. So the database here is on Appwrite.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Great. So what I'll do is I'll build all of this from scratch, and I'll go back to my IDE. I'll open a new window. And yes, I think we can create a new folder. Let's see if I can. Sorry. What I'll do here is I keep everything in my desktop. There is a folder called development. Yep, I think I can do things here. So what I'll first is installing Hugo. So since I'm on my Mac machine, you can use the homebrew package manager. It's very easy to install and very handy for any other packages. So I'll just run the command brew install Hugo. And for me, Hugo is already installed. So it will show that it's installed. And if you need to reinstall, I'll use the command brew reinstall. So now that this is done, I will be recreating the tutorial from Hugo Quick Start, and for that I will be using the command Hugo new site quick start. And yes, so what you need to do is you need to download a theme into your, the folder. And for the themes, what you can do is you can go back to your browser, and I already have the themes open here. So it's themes.gohugo.io. And the theme that I will be using is Nielo because I really like it. And that is what I showed in my demo. But you are more than welcome to, you know, choose your favorite one from so many of these that are already available. So like I mentioned, I will be going to Nielo, and so there you have an entire document that teaches you how you can download this theme. So you can either download it from here, or what I do is I copy this link, that is the link to my theme, and I'll just be adding it. But before that, what I need to do is I will be entering into my quick start folder. And now you see that is within quick start. I will be initializing an empty Git repository. It says that it's a master, but it's fine. And now it's time to add the Nielo theme. So it's git some module add. You just, paste the link that we copied from the themes, and you press enter, and you'll see that your theme is now added. So now it's time that I open the file. So like I mentioned, it's in desktop, it's in development. I think this is the one. Yep. So if you go ahead here, you'll see that my Nielo theme is added. Now the next step that I need to do is I need to go to my config file, and here I need to add the theme. So the theme here that I added is Nielo. So I'll just do that and click on save. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So to make, to see how your site is working, all you need to do is you need to add some content under this content folder. So for that, we reopen our terminal, and we write the command. It's Hugo new post. Sorry, new posts hyphen. So Hugo new is the command, and when I write posts hyphen, so what it does, it creates a folder under your content folder, and you can just create the name of your MD file. So maybe myfirst.md. And if you do this, you'll see that under content, you have your MD file. So anything that you type here will show up on as the content for your this particular article, and I save it. And it's also important that you convert the draft from true to false, because this must show up on your site. And yeah, so if I run the command Hugo server -d and press enter, it should show me only the myfirst.md content, which is hello world. So I'll do that, and you can see that it's up on localhost, but in a different. Mm-hmm. So I did my first, and it has hello world. So now this is the process that we do if without Appwrite. Now it's time that we come to Appwrite. So first I'll go to the step where we are actually installing Appwrite, and for that you go to appwrite.io. We just click on get started. Sorry, it's my internet. Yeah. Get started, and there is just one Docker command that you have right now. So you just click copy, and on your terminal command prompt partial, you just paste it, and in almost 2 minutes, Appwrite will be up and running for you. So for me, I'm using Docker, and if I open up Docker, you'll see that the Appwrite containers are running for me. So if you have Appwrite installed for you, you'll see something similar on your Docker engine as well. And if you want to use something different, let's say you're saying that you don't want to use Docker, but you want to use a single click process, so you can go to Appwrite installation. Sorry, and just simply go to Google and type Appwrite installation. And if you go to installation docs, you can scroll down and you'll see that there are two other options for one-click setups, and that is by using DigitalOcean or Gitpod. And Gitpod comes very handy if you are to contribute to Appwrite, because it will create a fork of a repository. So for those who are thinking to contribute to Appwrite, this is the way to go ahead. If not, you can go ahead with the Docker desktop way and then just create a fork and the clone and then contribute. That is something that I do, but if you want to skip the step, Gitpod is the way to go. So yep, that is about the installation part. And if I go to localhost or sign in, so for somebody who has installed Appwrite and you do localhost #sign up or sign in, this is something that will open up for you. But since I use this account, you see that I already have a lot of projects. But for you, you'll have no projects. It will be empty for you. So I'll show you the step on how to create a project, and it's just a few clicks, nothing very difficult. You click on create project and also zoom it a bit, give it a name. I already have something called Hugo, so I'll name it as Hugo blog and click on create. So you see that in a few seconds, the console was ready, and now you can use the different features or the services that Appwrite has. And since it's a project that has not been used yet, you see that everything, the connections, requests, documents, everything is 0. So for this particular demo, we will be using a database, and I just go to database, I add a new database, and I give it my favorite name, test. I'm super not creative, so that's the only name I could think of, especially when I'm doing a demo. And this is a database that will hold your data. So within your database, you need to have a collection. Collection is, when you are writing something, so you have headings. So collection is basically the headings within which you have the content. So for this particular demo, you know that in any blog, there is a title and then there is a body as well. So before creating those things, I need to create a collection first, and the collection maybe can be named as data. And yep, we need to make a little bit of changes here for read. So what we need to do is the program to be able to fetch the data that we have in Appwrite. So we need to give them read access, but I'll also give them write access just in case, if you want to do something more with it. So the role should be all, or if you want it to member, you can do that as well, but I'll keep the role to all, like the permission. Everybody who has this permission can read or has read access to my documents. So I'll do the same for write access as well, though it is not required for this demo, but I'm just doing it in general. And you update it, and yes, it's updated. So you'll notice that while I'm doing that, there is something called the collection ID. And if you go back to my documents, and you'll also see that there are database IDs. So these are the IDs that are basically the keys that connects you or helps integrate with Appwrite. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So now that the collection data is ready, it's time to add 2 attributes. And for this particular blogging site, you know that a blog or any article has 2 major things. The first one being the title and the second one being a body. So I click on create attribute, and the type of attribute that I'll add is string. So you can add different types of attribute as well, depending on the thing that you're building. But for this particular example, you need to add a string attribute. So I'll go ahead and add title. The size can be 255, and I click on create. And the next attribute that I want is a body. The size is already written, and I click on create. So now we have both the attributes ready, and now it's time that I go back to my ID and show you how we can, add the different, how we can add or how we can integrate Appwrite with Hugo. So what I'll do right now is I'll stop the site that was running, and I'll go back to my development directory because now it's time that I install Appwrite. So right, npm install Appwrite. Yeah. So this is where the problem appears because in general when we do that, you'll see that the node modules will be added, but I don't see that being added here because if you go back to my previous code, you'll see that it already has the node modules. So what I'll do is, for this particular example, since the node modules are not being added, I'll just come here to this particular file. npm install Appwrite works, but it's a demo gods that's acting up right now. So it didn't work right now.
That's always the way.
Yep. So if I were to work on that particular document or on that particular folder, I would just add this fetchart.js file, and we need to change some inputs here. So this that you see is our database ID. So for that, we need to go back to our console. Sorry, what I'll do is I'll just minimize my Docker desktop for now. And yep, I come back to my database, I go here to settings, and then I add the database ID first. So this is my database ID. And now I go back to my console again. I need one more thing, and that is my project ID. So from here, I copy it. So to make the initial connection with Appwrite, you need two important things. And first is the endpoint. The endpoint is localhost, mostly if you're having it on localhost. And the project ID is what changes. So that is what I copied and pasted it here. And the next thing that we need is the collection ID to list the documents that we have there. So for that, I'll go back to my console again and back to my database, back to my collections and my settings, and I have the collection ID. And yes, that's pretty much it. I changed the collection ID from here, and we are good to go. So just to run through the program or the code a bit, so what we actually want is this code to be able to integrate Hugo and Appwrite together. So to be able to do that, we first need to make a connection with Appwrite. And to make connection with Appwrite, we need two things, and that is to the endpoint and the project ID, and you get that from the console. Once that is done, you also need, since you're just using the database services of Appwrite, you need your code to be able to go in or make a connection with the database service, and then to go into your collection to fetch the data, and then change it to a README file or to a .md file. So to make connection with data, we just initialize this one here, and we add the database ID. And this right here is making the connection with the database. And the next thing that we need to do is, now that the connection with the database is made, we need to list the documents that we have in our collection. So to do that, we use databases.list documents, and we add the collection ID. So I'll go back to my console right now, and you see that my data here is empty. So I'll just add a new data, and I will write hello, and again, hi. Hi from CloudCannon this time. But this time it will be on the body, and I'll click on create. So what I want is, with the code that I just shared, that code to be able to fetch this data and convert this data into an MD file so that it can show up on my site or my blogging platform. So that is what the next few steps of my code does. So it is converting. This is where it is listing the documents that I have. So right now it will be hi and hello from CloudCannon. And those are just simple 2 entries that I have in Appwrite, but that needs to be converted to an MD file, right? And for that, we need to give them the MD file format, which is title, date, and description. And if you ask me where did I get this format from, if you go ahead to quick start and content, you'll see that this MD file or this one, it has this particular format. So I go here, and then what it basically does is a for loop. It runs with all the documents that we have listed there. So currently I have only one document, but what it will do is if you have 2 or 3 documents, it will run until it is converting all the documents or all the title and bodies into your MD file, and it will be generating the content into an MD file while Hugo is building from it. So if you see, the next thing that it is doing is it is converting the data from my Appwrite console to an MD file, and it is adding it to the path, quick start, content, posts, and then it is adding it here. So it's just a very simple code that we have written here. And to be very honest, the only lines that I wrote are these ones from line number 22 to 40, and the rest of the things that you see above are all Appwrite SDKs, so you can go to a documentation and do it from there. So to run the command, also one thing that I will do is I will delete these files because this were added from before, and I want to show you how it looks like when we add from Appwrite directly.
Great.
I'll just keep the first one. I'll just keep this first one like it's my first post. And what I'll do right now is I'll come out of my quick start folder, and I'll just run the fetcharg.js files, fetcharg.js, and you see that we have just one data there. So hello, hi from CloudCannon, it fetches it. And if you see that this hello.md is created here. So now the next thing that I need to do is I need to go back to my quick start directory and run the Hugo server to see if Hugo is able to build from that content. So I do that. And yes, you see that it could do it. And that's it. That's all that you need to do to have an integration of Appwrite and Hugo. And this is just an example of Hugo, but any static site generator can practically do the same with Appwrite.
That's a wonderful, say, 10 or 20 lines of code to enable all of this.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful example.
And I talked about using the Appwrite SDK. So this is a documentation that we have. And on the left side, you see that we have documentations for a lot of other services. But for us, it's the database that we want to use. And if you remember, the part that we used was listing the collections or listing the data. So yes, if you see that this is everything that I wrote there. I set my endpoint, I created a new date, like I made a connection with the database, and I was listing the documents. So if you remember my code, you'll see that there's nothing new that I added. I just copied it from here, added my Appwrite IDs or my endpoints, and it made a connection. And the only lines I wrote was where it was running a for loop and creating it to an MD file. So yes, it's that simple to build with Appwrite and with any static generator, Hugo being my favorite. That is what I demoed. So these are some resources that you can go ahead to help you learn more. The first one being Appwrite docs. The second one being Hugo documentation if you want to try more with Hugo. So for me, documentation is the way to go forward first and development next. But I know as developers, what we tend to do is we develop first and go to documentation next. And the third point that we have is the 30 days of Appwrite. It's basically a series where you can go through one article each day, and that is how you'll get to know about each Appwrite services. And at the end of 30 days, you'll have your own edX clone that is built with Appwrite. So yes, that's all for the resources. And here is a Discord community QR code and also the link appwrite.io/Discord. The purpose of this one is, I mentioned about the community. It's a very supportive one. I know Appwrite might sound like a big project, but every and each question is very welcome here, and we address each questions almost instantaneously. At least we try to do that. If we are not available, somebody from the community is there to help you. A very supportive community that way. And also we have some fun in the middle of all the tech stuff. We also hold monthly loots where you get a chance to win some stacks. It's just a fun place to be if you're looking a place maybe to find a hackathon partner, to build something, or to hack around with Appwrite or any other tech in general, not just Appwrite. Feel free to join our Discord channel. And yes, that's all. That's all from me. Thank you for having me, and I hope you learned something out of it.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Haimantika. I'm really impressed, and I'm conscious throughout your demonstration that you can build a CloudCannon competitor, an API-based CMS through Appwrite using Hugo, and you can put CloudCannon out of business with Appwrite. So congratulations. That's really cool, and I'm really impressed. I think just the fact that it boils down to your 18 lines to pull from a database. You're making Markdown. Hugo's doing the work in the background to build the site.
Exactly.
It's great. So if I've got a couple of questions. If you get to a point where you have 10,000 pages on a Hugo site, Hugo is still fast, and they are teasing a 1 million page release, which is apparently going to be faster. But will we see any slowdowns on the Appwrite side? I know we'll see a slight slowdown on Hugo's side of things. But if you're pulling from the database and making that many Markdown files, are you doing it every time in the way that Hugo builds every time?
Yes, it's building every time, but it doesn't slow down the process because we have built similar apps before where, we are querying, like we were building a search engine with Appwrite, and there were a lot of data, like some 100,000 data that was there, and it was there in Appwrite. So that did not slow down the process. And this is something that, we thought that probably Appwrite will break or something will happen. But when we tried that, we were happy that we are able to build a stable product. And that's not only just about this particular demo or any demo level projects, but if you remember the community spotlight that I showed, so that app is, getting 1 million or let's say some 100,000 requests every day, and the backend is built totally on Appwrite. So yes, that can be done. And this is just one example. There's also another site that I would like to give an example of that is called thumbsup.tech. So it's basically a job searching platform, and there are many job searchers who are there looking for a job. So that particular platform is also built with Appwrite. So when it comes to handling this request, processing the data, Appwrite luckily doesn't slow down on that part.
That's fantastic. And like I said earlier, one of the big appeals of Hugo is the speed. So anything that compromises that, people tend to get up in arms about. But that's wonderful to hear. Do you have any other examples of applications that have been built or are being built currently on Appwrite? Just in terms of the range of what Appwrite is capable of.
Yeah, I think these are only two of the examples that I can remember right now. Sorry, I have a very bad memory. But like I mentioned about the Spotlight series that we are doing, so we intend to bring all of those applications, mostly the production-ready ones or that are being used in production, just to show people or give them an example of what you can do with Appwrite. So anybody who's interested, that's the place to stay tuned.
Fantastic. And just to wrap up, and so we've gone through this process. We've created a Hugo site, connected it to Appwrite, and Appwrite is pulling from the database. Yeah. Hugo is building. And you have been teaching in public, and I've been learning in public. And I wanted to wrap up with the way you described your mission in your role currently as a continuous mission to build more yourself and to help developers get started. And I think it's, again, it's a wonderful goal and a wonderful way to approach work and life. And I think it dovetails quite neatly with Appwrite's mission, as stated, which is to reduce complexity and to make development accessible and enjoyable. And I wonder if you have any closing comments on that.
I think that I would say that I'm just too lucky to be in a place where I could convert my passion into a job and work in a company where I can have the same ideals as myself and for the company as well. So, being a developer myself and being through the process where I did a lot of self-learning and self-taught myself, I know that it can be a bit difficult and overwhelming at times. So I don't want developers like me, or especially women like me, to go through that phase. So, I just want to be there to help everybody, be it in my capacity as an individual or through Appwrite. So yeah, that's for me. And I have big dreams and goals when it comes to such initiatives. And I hope that someday I can get closer to it.
Fantastic. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the presentation, and it's something I will jump in and try. I was really tempted after Hugo conference, and I saw your talk, and then I thought elements of it sounded complicated, and I was put off. But I think today, after understanding a bit more maybe by now about Hugo and how it works on my side, but also seeing how much Appwrite can kind of hold your hand along the process, it's very exciting. So thank you so much.
It is.
Thank you very much for your time. So just if you're watching along, appwrite.io is the place to go. You can also follow Haimantika at Haimantika M on Twitter, and I'll include links in the description after the show. Thank you very much, and
thank you.
We will see next. My next. Excuse me, let me just switch over the stream. Thank you, Haimantika. My next interview on static feedback will be with a Hugo theme developer. I'm very excited about this. This is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
But again,
that's exciting.
Thanks very much. I was tempted to pull you in and make you work on his theme, but I thought I shouldn't do that. But I'm really interested in the process of a designer approaching development or a developer approaching design, because everyone seems to be working very slightly outside of their comfort zone. And a lot of the people I talk to, when I approach them to come and talk on static feedback, they might say, "Oh, I'm not really a developer," or "I don't do this very often. This is just a passion project," or "It's just fun." But it's I think I love, as I said earlier off camera, I love the human side of things outside of the work that we're paid for. So it's just, and it's wonderful when the two can dovetail, as it seems to have for you. And fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun, and I'm glad that we could make it work. I thought that our timelines were clashing so much that we'll not be able to make it, but I'm so glad that we could.
Yes, absolutely. No, and the crossover between India Standard Time, between New Zealand Daylight Savings Time, and between I think we cross over with Central European, but luckily everything is recorded, is available on YouTube, and we're all set. Great.
Yep. So which day are you in now? 2nd November or 3rd November?
We are currently the 3rd of November. Let me just...
so you're very ahead of time.
We are very ahead of time, yes. We're living in the future at CloudCannon.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a nice way to put things.
That's right. It's my favorite way of thinking about it. That's right. Yes. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'll just close the stream. Thanks so much, Haimantika.